Okay, everybody, let us get to part 2. Chapter 2. A rent-free home. I know. I'll make a house. A totally break-in-proof house. I've given up on escaping from this dungeon. If I keep wandering around randomly, the only future I can imagine is some unexpected encounter leading to a dead end. Or getting, running into a boss and being unable to escape it and being killed. Yeah. Monster or human, everything is my enemy now. And I don't mean a frenemy or a rival or anything like that. I'm talking the kind that puts your life in danger. Yeah, I agree on this one. You are in danger in this place. From anything! Anything could kill you, essentially. Besides, this place is frequented by humans. It'd be risky to use the exit even if I do manage to find it. I mean, if anybody discovers me, they'll kill me. And there could be a human settlement right outside. Yeah, I doubt that. If it's as big as you say it is, I highly doubt there's a settlement right near the entrance where monsters are known to be at. Which is why I've made up my mind to live in this dungeon. So anyway, if this is my new home, what do I need? Food, shelter, and clothing. Well, I don't think that last one is necessary for a spider. Yeah, I agree. The temperature here is comfortable enough either way. The problem is food and shelter. Question, what is a spider's main diet? Answer, other insects. Oof, that's true, isn't it? That's what I'm going to have to do to fill my belly. Although, given my absurd size, I don't think my potential prey is limited to insects. For instance, I could probably eat other monsters, or I don't want to think about this, but human beings. Really, my siblings back there started cannibalizing one another as soon as they were born, right? A giant parent spider was eating her children like it was no big deal too, so as far as I can tell, my particular species seems to regard all living beings as potential food. In fact, in a cave like this, it's probably the only option. Which means if I want to eat, I have to take on some other monsters and chow down. You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs after all, and I'm gonna starve to death if I don't eat something no matter how gross. At present, I do have one thing that could potentially serve as a food source. The butchered carcass of the spider I found earlier. Legs and fangs and stuff had been taken, but most of the main body was still there. Well, if I eat that, I probably won't have to worry about food for the rest of the day if I can bring myself to eat it, that is. Yeah, if it says the legs and fangs and stuff had been taken, but I'm assuming the meat is still there. Honestly, suddenly having to eat a spider is pretty extreme, and that thing was probably one of my siblings. Yeah. Both ethically and visually, I'd really rather not. So I'm going to hold off on eating the guy for now. Besides, even if I do take that plunge, it would only be a temporary fix. Or temporary solution. Considering that I've been living in this danger from now on, I have to be able to procure food on a regular basis anyway, but if I want to eat other monsters, that means I'll have to beat them first. How am I supposed to just jump into combat? A frail girl like me, who's only ever been good at games, won't stand a chance in a real fight. And so I conclude that I should start by making a house. What's a spider without a spider web, right? I mean, spiders usually create spider webs anyway to catch things to eat. So if you get lucky, you might be able to catch something and subdue it to eat it without too much combat-related stuff. So you might get lucky. I mean, I've seen the show, but it's been a while. Spiders create webs with special viscous thread and use them to catch prey after all. That's what I'm saying. So if this goes well, my food problem and my shelter problem will be solved all at once, possibly. I think this cave makes for a nice location, actually. If nothing else, it should be easy to make webs all over the place. Without any further ado, then time to create my new home. Carrying the corpse of my sibling on my back, I stake out a good spot where people are unlikely to bother me. What? Why would I take it with me, you ask? Insurance. Hopefully it won't come to that, but beggars can't be choosers. Yeah, take your potential food source with you just in case. Because you might need that later. And if you go back to it and it's not there, then you can assume that your brother or sisters ate it. Eventually I come to a T-junction with no human footprints in sight, so I decide to set up there. First, I have to produce the thread. From my butt, I guess. I'm pretty sure that's the general area the thread should come out of, so let's give it a shot. But by the time I finish the thought, I realize I've already produced a thread somehow. Huh? I don't remember this stuff coming out of me. On top of that, it's a really long one. Oh man, does this mean I've been walking around with a string sticking out of my butt this whole time? Wow, that's so embarrassing. Not really, considering, you're a spider. You're just probably a stupid one. Maybe it's like when you, okay, forget about the fact that I made thread unconsciously for now. Now to make a home for real this time. So what's the redacted stuff, please? Because I'm kind of having a brain fart and I don't know. Is that talking about, like, dragging toilet paper on your shoe or something out of the bathroom? Is that what that is? Or is that something else? Finished. I look over my work with satisfaction. A magnificent spiderweb is strung up across the cave passage, blocking the area off. Man, did my natural instincts kick in or something. As soon as I started working, my body just moved on its own and constructed the web in the blink of an eye. However, instead of totally completing the net, I left a little hole just big enough for me to squeeze through. Why? For an escape route, obviously. I'm settling in at a three-way intersection, which is now hemmed in by my webs over each passage, but if I blocked it up completely, I wouldn't be able to get out. It's possible, although I doubt it'll happen, that some fierce opponent might slash to my net. So, I mean, it did happen, you could just recreate it, obviously, but... So I left a hole on purpose so I can get away in case of an emergency. Now I'm protected by webs in all three directions, plus an emergency exit is in place. The ideal den for a shut-in is complete. There's no place like home. All I need now is for prey to get caught in my net on a regular basis. If I can pull that off, there's no reason I won't be able to hide out in this place for the rest of my life. Awesome! I did go to school, but other than that, I mostly lived my life on Earth as a recluse. I never talked to anyone at school, and once I got home, I always just played games or surfed the net. Most of my dinners involved adding hot water and waiting 3 minutes or heating something up on the stove. Occasionally, I'd mix things up in a box lunch for the convenience store. My parents both worked all day and usually got home late, and even when they came home, we never saw each other face to face. We only did the bare minimum of chores. To be perfectly honest, it was like living with two total strangers. It's kind of impressive in a way that I can't even remember what my real parents look like. Oh, that's not a good thing. Then again, you won't have to worry about seeing them again because you're stuck in this world. Still, I wonder if they were a little bit sad about my death at least. We don't know. Nah, probably not. Although I might be sad about losing what little income I contributed to the household, I used to earn a small amount of rent money through stocks. If there's anything they'd miss, it's probably that. That was how cold our family relationship was. My lifestyle probably contributed to my extreme awkwardness when it came to communicating with others. Or it might have just been the personality I was born with, not how I was raised. As a result, I didn't have anyone I could call a friend, and even in game chats, I usually didn't say much. Likewise, my character in my favorite MMO had a reputation for being silent. My avatar was a somber old bald dude too. Baldy! She's Baldy! Holy shit! Holy moly! So she was Baldy! Those guys were playing with Baldy and they were freaking out about it! Oh my god! He was a real strong and silent type, the kind of good guy who let his actions do all the talking. And his stats were pretty out there. I maxed out my attack power and speed and left everything else untouched. But that didn't matter as long as I didn't get hit. I just avoided enemy attacks and plowed through everything with hit and run strategy. The perfect plan, aside from the part that a single hit would probably kill me. Yeah, I probably needed to add hit points too, but whatever. I don't really care about not being able to see my parents or classmates anymore, but it makes me a little sad to think I'll never get to see that bald guy again. I made him a legend for being one of the few free-to-players who could stand up against the pay-to players. So essentially the ones who didn't pay to play the game, she's one of the few ones who could stand up against the ones who put all their money into the game to get all the extra cool stuff and all that. So it's a shame to have abandoned his file like that. In short, I'm more attached to a game character than I am to my parents. I've got a knack for this being inhuman thing, if I do say so myself. Besides, it's true. I've never been that good at being a person. Although, I suppose believing it's okay to be a bad person is the first step toward becoming one. Well, since I'm already a bad person, I might as well say it. Being a recluse is the best! Woohoo! A white thread is drawn between my two forelegs. When I pull on it, it goops and stretches, and when I stop pulling it, it gradually returns to its original length. Okay, nice and rubbery, just like I hoped. What am I doing, you ask? Experimenting with my spider thread, of course. From now on, the stuff is going to be my lifeline, so I figured testing out what it could do should be my first priority. Yeah, figuring out what you could do, and maybe even add some skills to it, too. I started by producing a whole bunch of it, experimenting with whether I could control the thickness, stickiness, strength, and elasticity. Adjusting the thickness was easy enough. I couldn't quite make it invisibly thin, of course, but I could get it about as fine as a strand of hair. In the darkness of this dungeon, that should be really hard to spot. But when I followed up with a strength test, I discovered that the thinner I made the thread, the more easily it broke. Okay, so you can't just use really thin thread to trap your enemies and expect it to work. It's not going to work. Because they'll hit it, but they'll break through. Well, nothing I can do about that. If you think about it, skinnier would obviously mean more fragile. Conversely, thickening the thread increases its durability. The fattest thread I can currently create is a little less than an inch around. Not that different from your average rope, I guess. Of course, that's only the maximum for a single raw thread. If I really want to make a thicker one, I can just bundle together a bunch of them. Sounds like a lot of work, though. To be honest, I wish I hadn't experimented with the stickiness. It's easy to assume that all spider threads adhere to everything, but in fact, some aren't sticky at all. And apparently the reason spiders don't get caught on their own webs is due to their skillful use of these non-stick threads. I realized this when my instincts kicked in as I built my home. So I decided to experiment to gain a deeper understanding of it, but instead I just tangled up my own body. Well, yeah. Since you have to make a proper use of the sticky and non-sticky fibers, it stands to reason that if you don't, you'll just get caught in your own threads. And that's how I ended up stuck in my own damn spider web like an idiot. That freaked me out. But seriously, one more wrong move and I might have been permanently caught in my own trap and died that stupidest death possible. Luckily, by some miracle, I discovered I could still alter the properties of a thread to a certain extent, as long as it was still connected to my butt. After that, I tested whether this could also apply to detached threads and found it could, if only a little bit. I guess it's a fantasy world for you. Yep. I took a moment to regroup, then started testing the strength. I already knew that thinner thread was weaker and thicker was stronger, but I wasn't able to figure out the greatest force it could withstand. Why, you ask? Because when I produced a maximum strength thread, I failed to cut through it no matter how hard I tried. Alarmingly enough, I couldn't even chew through it with my fangs. That's good against enemies, but not good if you're trying to figure out how much you could take. If I got caught in a web like this, no way could I just slip out. Even so, I'm sure there could be other more powerful monsters able to slice right through it, so I had to be careful not to overestimate its strength. Yeah. And so, the final experiment, elasticity, has produced the thread that I'm currently manipulating with my clawed legs. Okay. This rubbery thread could certainly come in handy. If I fasten a stone or something to it, I could probably use it as a simple sling. There'll definitely be other practical uses for it too. Guess my experiment yielded some satisfactory results after all. However, there is one problem I can't ignore much longer. Spinning all that thread seems to have drained my energy. In other words, I'm extremely hungry. I've been wanting food for a long time, and now it feels like my life might be in danger. Strangely, I'm not particularly thirsty, but this degree of hunger I'm experiencing is undeniably way worse than usual. Yeah, you might have to resort to eating that spider carcass. At this rate, I'll starve to death. I won't even live to see the sunrise tomorrow. Although I guess I wouldn't see that anyway, since I'm in a cave. If I want to avoid that fate, I have to eat something. And all I have on hand is the thing I brought along as backup. Yep, you might have to. Should I eat that? Well, my only other option at the moment is dying, so... If I'm gonna live in a dungeon, I have to get used to eating monsters raw anyway. Alright, time to suck it up. Eating my sibling's corpse is my first meal after being born. Seems kinda irredeemably immoral, but I don't have much of a choice. Okay, here goes. Whoa, this is totally gross. So bitter! But I force it down anyway. I can't exactly afford to turn up my nose at it just because I don't like the taste. So I press on and finish eating my sibling's carcass. This is enough to fill my stomach so I don't have to worry about starvation for a while. Whew, thanks for the meal, I guess. Condition satisfied. Acquired title, Kin Eater. Acquired skills, Taboo level 1. Heretic magic level 1 as a result of title Kin Eater. What? It's the same voice I heard back when I gained the appraisal skill. Let's just call this announcer a divine voice for now. So what's up with this title business? Is this what I think it is? The kind of achievement reward you get after meeting certain conditions? Probably, but either way, the one I just got is kind of bizarre and disgraceful. I mean, just the phrase kin eater sounds terrible. Other people can't see this, right? No, I bet they could if their appraisal skill was high enough. Ugh, if someone sees that, they're gonna judge me so hard. Although, seeing as I'm a monster and all, they're bound to dislike me whether or not they can see my title. But aside from the unfortunate wording, this is kind of a big deal, isn't it? I mean, I even gained 2 skills at once. So if you get a title, you can get a skill without using any points. Yeah, this is huge! I'd assumed there was no way for me to acquire new skills with 0 skill points, but this discovery of other methods is pretty great. So, my newly acquired skills are Taboo and Heretic Magic. Taboo is a cool sounding name, but I have no idea what it'll actually do. I can't even come up with any wild guesses. Excuse me, can I get an explanation, please? I can't use this if I don't know what effect it has. Wait, by that logic, I won't be able to use Heretic Magic either. What now? Am I supposed to utter the spell or something? Wait. I'm a spider, so I can't even say anything! Well, you technically could talk, you just wouldn't be able to talk as a human, you would just talk, and you're... All I can produce is some kind of croak? Or like a teeth grinding sound, really? Well, even if I could talk, it's not like I know any spells, so I'm out of luck either way. Just for fun, I'll try thinking Heretic Magic really hard. Yeah, nothing's happening. Can't use that. I was excited about the chance to cast some real fantasy magic aside from the worrying implications of the heretic part, but this sure nips that excitement in the bud. Maybe it isn't possible to use magic skills right after getting them. Is it just because I have no idea how? Or do I have to study magic first or something? I don't know even the basics here. Huh? I thought I'd struck gold getting these skills in the title, but what's the point if I can't use it? Is Kin Eater totally useless or what? Now that I think about it, if all you have to do to get the Kin Eater title is make a meal of your own kind, tons of my spider siblings probably have it too. It doesn't change the fact that humans can easily kill us then. In other words, getting the Kin Eater title had exactly 0 effect on my battle capability, so it's actually useless. I see. No wonder the condition was so easy to meet. So the easier the title is to acquire, the lower its effect basically. Still, it's good I learned about the existence of titles at all. If I could score a bunch more, maybe I'll be able to efficiently build up some skills. Maybe I should try a few things to see if I can rack up a couple more. Although I don't know what kind of titles are out there. And I don't have any tools or anything, so there's only so much I can do. Maybe if I dance for a while, I'll get a dancer title or something. Let me try for a second. Within a few moments, a huge tremor runs through the thread I'm standing on and knocks me flat on my face. Ow, that hurts. I didn't get a title from my efforts either, just a painful new memory, so much for that. Composing myself, I bring my attention to the still vibrating thread. The other end is attached to the bottom of the web in the passageway to my left. Something must be caught there. My first prey. I approach with caution. When I get close enough to see the web, I notice something stuck in it with eye-searingly bright, rainbow-colored spots. Frog. Okay, this actually is shaped like a frog. It's around the same size as me and shiny with the colors of the rainbow, but at least it still resembles a frog. This is my first time my appraisal skill assessed a monster other than myself with an acceptable result. People always say that frog tastes like chicken, so this should be easy enough to eat. You would hope so, anyway. At the very least, it won't be nearly as awful as eating my sibling. If I have one complaint, though, it will be that the color of this frog pretty much screams poisonous. Yeah, because brightly colored frogs like that are usually poisonous because that's how they deter predators. I mean, there's no way something this obnoxiously colored won't be toxic. Besides, since I ate earlier, I'm not as hungry as I could be. What should I do? Right as I'm taking it easy and mulling things over, the frog suddenly launches a desperate counterattack. That's right, it just spits some super poisonous looking liquid right at me. Crap! Since my guard is totally down, I don't have any time to dodge, so all I can do is mentally curse as the fluid splatters all over me. Ah! Hey, what the? Ow, ow, ow! Poison? Is this poison? Man, it really hurts where all that stuff hit me. What? A second shot? Wait, seriously? Ah, got me again! Oh, hey, this isn't funny! Retreat! I forced my tangled legs to move and somehow managed to get out of the frog's range. Wow, that really hurt. Is that what it feels like to have acid dumped over you? I'm not melting, am I? I'm worried, but of course I don't have a mirror, so it's not like I can check. Damn, this is embarrassing. Even if it is stuck in a trap, my opponent is still a monster. I shouldn't have let my guard down. A cornered rat bites back. Even a frog caught by a snake won't just roll over and let itself be eaten. Man, that hurt, but it doesn't seem like I'm going to die at least. The poison mostly just hit my left side of my back. A little bit must have gotten in my eye too, since part of my field of vision is black now. Oh, not good. If my eye isn't working, why is only a small part of my vision missing? Ah, maybe I have a lot of eyes, since I'm a spider. That's probably it. A new discovery. But I have bigger issues to worry about at the moment. The pain isn't going away. Proficiency has reached the required level. Acquired skill, acid resistance level 1. What? Inexplicably, the pain is now abating. Is that easy to earn skills without spending skill points? Huh? Wait, what's up with the points I've spent to get appraisal then? Better not think about that too deeply, because I think that skill can level up. Actually, then again, this one can too, so I don't know. Better not think about that too deeply. Anyway, I'm now the proud owner of an acid-resisting skill. Presumably this is the result of taking a hit from that frog's poison attack. Okay, but it didn't happen right away afterwards, and there must have been other conditions. It says something about the proficiency, so maybe the prolonged acid damage is what did it? Well, I can think about that later. Thanks to my new resistance, the ache has mostly died down. In its place, rage toward that frog is bubbling up inside me. That stupid amphibian thought it could pick a fight with me when it was nothing more than a snack? Unforgivable. I made up my mind. I don't care whether it's poisonous or not. I'm gonna eat it if it's the last thing I do. With that decided, it's time to charge. As long as I don't let my guard down, this thing is nothing more than pathetic prey caught in my trap. The frog spits venom at me 3 times. Now that I know what's coming, dodging is no problem at all. I avoid the missiles brilliantly, they attack directly. Eat my ultimate technique. Chomp, bite down. You think this is just an ordinary bite? I'm a spider. My fangs are venomous. Really? You know that for sure? You're just not assuming, are you? Just like when I produced thread before, this information somehow comes to me naturally. Okay. Ha, suffer and die at the hands of my venom. But just as I'm thinking that, splat. Another shot of poison at point blank range. Pay attention! Ow, ow, ow! Even when resistance it still hurts, and now I'm even let go. Or now I've even let go. Proficiency has reached the required level. Skill, poison resistance level 1 has become poison resistance level 2. Wait. When did you get poison resistance? Oh, does she already have poison resistance? Wait a minute. She had acid resistance before. Hold on. Yeah, acid resistance level 1. So, wait a minute. Is that still the same thing? Or does she already have poison resistance due to being a poisonous spider? I'm assuming that's the case because it didn't mention poison resistance before. Which actually makes sense, since it would make no sense for a poisonous spider to not be have a resistance to poison, you know? It's like a fire type in Pokemon not being able to handle fire, you know? Oh, so that's how it works. Wait, now's not the time for that. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, 3 times, I'm gonna kill you. Stupid frog. Now I'll never forgive you. Not that I had any intentions of doing that in the first place, but still. No mercy! Letting my anger take its course, I bit down a second time. The frog starts writhing in agony. That's right, suffer! Now that I'm getting into this, I give it a few more chomps for good measure. The frog struggles for a little while longer, but its movements are gradually weakened, and eventually it runs out of strength. Whew! I finally beat it. Considering how much I struggled with my first prey, my future is looking grim. I mean, you gotta start somewhere. You're gonna be weak at first, but then you start getting stronger. But still, I did it. Sweet! Might as well chomp down. Bitter. Ow! Is the bitterness poison? And the pain is probably acid, I guess. Well, thanks to my resistance, it isn't too much for me to bear. It isn't exactly delicious, though. Proficiency has reached the required levels. skill, there we go, this is what I'm saying. Acid resistance level 1 has become acid resistance level 2. Well, the taste may not be to my liking, but the skill increase certainly is. Okay, so she did originally have poison resistance before, right at the start. Makes sense. Besides, this is a special occasion, my first catch in my new home. Thanks to this fellow, I'm confident my spider thread is strong enough to hold up against monsters. Weak ones, probably, but as you get better with your threads and stronger, then that should get stronger too. This level of creature at least won't be able to escape. Plus, now that I know that prey will get caught in the web the way I hoped, that information makes the whole ordeal worth it. Thanks a bunch, Frog. I'm still holding a grudge over the acid spitting thing, though. Okay, S2, Reincarnation. In the kingdom of Anale, there lived a boy named Slain Zagan Anale. As his name suggests, he was a member of the royal family. He was a child of a concubine of the king and lived as the fourth prince. But this boy possessed memories of a previous life. In that life, his name had been... damn it, I can't even... I'm not good with Japanese names. Shunsuke Yamada. I'll be honest, the boy is me. My last memory from my previous life was of sitting in classical Japanese class. At the time, I noticed a crack in the air above the classroom, and that's where everything went black. Rifts in space weren't a normal occurrence back on Earth, so whatever happened then is most likely why I died. Then, inexplicably, I was reborn with memories of my previous life, which was how I came to live in this game-like world where skills and levels are real. In this world, you actually have a status. How could this exist in reality outside of a game? I did wonder about that for a while, but I eventually gave up trying to figure it out. Instead, I realized it would be more fun to focus on the positives of living in this kind of world. Training would improve my abilities, and it was pretty fun to hone my strength like that. However, this world has its inconveniences too. You can't see anyone's status. Good. The concept exists, yet you have to clear extremely strict conditions if you want to perceive it. See, there's a skill called Appraisal. With Appraisal, you can see statuses, but few people possess that skill. In order to acquire it, just like becoming a judge or an appraiser on Earth, you need a thorough education on how to judge the values of things, powers of observation to figure out the composition of substances, and other such high-level skills. No amateur would be able to manage that. And even if you could get the appraisal skill, it's extremely difficult to raise its level, so very few people have it in the first place. Well, our spider friend has it, but obviously he does not know this. Really, all it actually takes to acquire appraisal is paying the right amount of skill points. But even though that's technically possible, you can't get any further once you have it. Raising the skill level of appraisal only requires using it. Every time you use appraisal, your proficiency rises, and if you reach a certain level of proficiency, the level goes up as well. However, it's using the skill that's the real problem. On the one hand, it doesn't require any magical power or energy. I know what you're thinking, couldn't you just use it whenever you want then? That's not that simple. The catch is this. Whenever appraisal is used, the user gets hit with a headache and a drunken feeling. The degree seems to vary depending on the individual, but in the worst cases, some people will faint after using it only once. And even more talented users can't appraise more than 2 things at once. Since each use is so rough, using the skill over and over to increase your proficiency would be incredibly punishing. I don't think she ended up having that problem though. As a bonus, the appraisal skill is worthless until it reaches a very high level, and so very few people bother acquiring it. In fact, there are a handful of families that make a living serving as appraisers, passing the skill down through generations. So if you're wondering how someone checks their status, the answer is with appraisal stones. An appraisal stone is a magic tool made through a special process which allows the holder to temporarily use a skill. The level of the skill allowed by one of these stones depends on its quality. The number of stones in the world that grant level 10, like the one belonging to the royal family, can be counted on one hand. Naturally, you need special permission to use it, so basically only big nobles close to the royal family have any chance. Since I'm royalty myself, I can technically use it, but it's not like I can do that whenever I want. I pester Anna the maid about it repeatedly, but it can only be used once you reach a certain age. In fact, it turns out that your first time having your status appraised is considered a special occasion, so nobility and the like always hold a big formal ceremony for it. and I had to go through that ceremony too. In addition to the appraisal, the ceremony serves as the child's debut to greater society. Your appraisal results are revealed to everyone present, and all the adults start judging your value right then and there. I had more skills than the average person my age, so I knew it probably wouldn't be a problem for me, but apparently if your stats are super low, your family might reject you, so that's a frightening prospect. Anyway, me and my younger sister Sue, a child of the king's wife, born around the same time as me, were about to undergo our first public debut. Sue and I had to change into the ceremonial children's clothes for the occasion and hear about the schedule over and over again. The current king, in other words, our father, was also attending. Aside from that, there would be a who's who of other important people present, so making a mistake and embarrassing myself was not an option. Despite being a kid, I was still a member of the royal family. I was about to play a leading role in the ceremony, so I needed to carry the dignity of the royal family on my shoulders. That was a heavy load for a former lower middle class commoner. However, when I saw how majestically my sister was carrying herself next to me, I felt a determination to do things properly that bordered on impatience. Are you ready? I nodded silently in response to Anna's final check. Then please proceed. Anna pushed us forward, and Sue and I walked side by side to the doors of the ceremony hall. As soon as we passed through the entrance, the ceremonial space loomed large before my eyes. A red carpet extended from the door in a straight line toward a pedestal, behind which a man stood waiting. A huge crowd of people lining the wall watched us in silence. Everyone here was a high-ranking noble. Sue and I walked across the carpet without a word. Our steps were measured and dignified the way we'd been taught to walk in anticipation of this very day. I could feel the gazes of the assorted nobles piercing me, but I did my best to ignore them. Eventually, we reached the front of the pedestal. Sue and I halted and knelt down. Standing at the ready behind the pedestal was the king, our father, Magus Dara Anali. The appraisal ceremony will now begin. The king's majestic voice boomed throughout the ceremony hall. Although he was my father, I'd only met this person a handful of times. He felt more like a high-ranking relative than a parent. This only made my nervousness worse. The king was still speaking, but I couldn't quite process what he was saying. Now, Shlain Zagan Anali, you may rise. Yes, sir. I stood up. Let the appraisal begin. I advanced onto the stepping stool in front of the pedestal. Without the boost, I wouldn't be tall enough at my current height. A black stone was fitted in the pedestal. This was the appraisal stone, smaller than I'd expected. If I were an adult, it would fit in the palm of my hand easily. Masking my surprise, I placed my hands on the appraisal stone. Just as I'd been taught, I thought, appraise. My status displayed with unexpected ease. Okay, let's see. Human level 1, name Shlain Zagan Anale. Status HP 35 out of 35 green. MP 348 out of 348 blue. I think that's a lot as a kid. SP, I'm assuming is status? Or not status, stamina. Sorry, stamina. 35 out of 35 yellow. Something else. 35 out of 35 red. Wonder what that is. It didn't say, because HP, MP, SP, what the heck is this? Average offensive ability, 20 details. Average defensive ability, 20 details. Average magical ability, 314 details. Average resistance ability, 299 details. Average speed ability, 20 details. Okay, let's see. Skills. Skill points, 100,000. Jesus Christ, dude! Titles, none. Oh god, here we go. We got a lot here, guys, so bear with me. Magic Perception, level 8. Magic Operation, level 8. Magic Warfare, level 6. Magic Conferment, level 5. Magic Attack, level 3. MP Recovery Speed, level 7. MP Lessened... Hang on. MP Lessened Consumption, level 2. Swordsmanship, level 3. Production Enhancement, level 2. Mental Warfare, level 2. Energy Conferment, level 1. Concentration, level 5. Hit, level 1. Hit level 1. Evasion, level 1. Vision Enhancement, level 4. Auditory Enhancement, level 7. Olfactory Enhancement, level 2. Taste enhancement level 1. What the fuck is that? Tactile enhancement level 1. Life level 5. What the fuck? Magic mass level 8. Instantaneous level 5. Persistent level 5. Strength level 5. Solidity level 5. Technique user level 8. Protection level 7. Running level 5. Divine protection. Unintelligible. I can see my status. At the same time, the results of the status appeared on a screen-like surface on the front wall. The screen was connected to the appraisal stone so they could display the results. Apparently, this world had no concept of personal information. For me, the appraisal results appeared in Japanese, but on the screen they showed up in the language spoken here. I'd been wondering what would happen if it displayed in Japanese, but I guess the system accounted for that kind of thing. Voices stirred throughout the room. The king raised his voice and attempted to calm the crowd, but the tumult continued unabated. My status must have been unusual to warrant that reaction. Honestly, I kind of figured something like that would happen. My magic-related stats were relatively high. Anna had guaranteed that. By comparison, my physical ability was appropriate for my age. Well, it was still a lot higher than average, but it didn't deviate from the standard as much as my magic. So my stats were pretty unbalanced. As for the skills, a voice called the Word of God informed me whenever I leveled up a skill or gained a new one, so I already knew about most of them. But there were two I didn't recognize. One was Divine Protection, and the other had a name that looked like corrupted text. Curious about those, I tried appraising them. Divine Protection. You are protected by the heavens, making it easier for you to gain the results you desire in any situation. And unintelligible is cannot be appraised. What's that? A Divine Protection scaling was crazy. Definitely a skill that could be considered cheating. However, the phrasing, easier for you to gain the results you desire, must have meant that things won't necessarily go the way I want every time. Or you might have to get creative with how you get the skills you want, essentially. It was still an awesome skill, but I shouldn't depend on it too much. What I didn't understand was the other one. Its name and the results of the appraisal were equally cryptic. I had no idea what kind of skill it might be. The fact that the highest level appraisal stone available still yielded this result was especially mysterious. If this stone couldn't tell me, there was probably no way to find out the details of this ability. I didn't get it. Isn't that like the Duke's daughter? Yes, that prodigy, but His Highness is just as much a prodigy as her. No, even more so. As the nobles continued their chatter, I heard repeated references to a Duke's daughter. Was there someone else who had similar stats? I thought Sue was the only one besides me. Quiet down! In response to the king's exceptionally loud shout, the ceremonial hall finally simmered down. The king handed me a piece of paper. It was a record of my results magically printed from the screen connected to the appraisal stone. I accepted the paper reverently, then I bowed and stepped away. With this, my appraisal ceremony was over. Now it was Sue's turn. Needless to say, another uproar filled the hall when Sue's appraisal showed similar results to mine. However, unlike me, Sue didn't have divine protection or any mysteriously corrupted skills. Aside from the minor uproar, the appraisal ceremony ended more or less without incident, but our unusually high stats wasn't the only cause of the disruptions. Listening in on the nobles with my enhanced hearing, I learned that skill points were normally only awarded when a person leveled up, so having 100,000 skill points at level 1 like I did was highly abnormal. Yeah, which reminded me, Sue had 0 skill points too. Yeah. I figured this was probably because I was a reincarnation, but what really interested me was that the Duke's daughter was apparently born with skill points as well. From what I could tell, her appraisal ceremony had been just a few days before mine, and like me, she had incredibly high stats for her age and skill points that she shouldn't have had. How old are they at this point? I don't know. Apparently the Duke's daughter even had that garbled skill of corrupted text. A certain suspicion began to well up inside me. If my hunch was right, then I had to meet the Duke's daughter at any cost. An opportunity came sooner than expected. After the appraisal ceremony, a small reception was held in a separate venue. The king brought Sue and me to the center of the hall, where we ended up greeting a line of nobles. The guests were all accompanied by their children, who were mostly the same age as me or slightly older. So basically, the purpose of this get-together was to introduce young nobles who were close in age, and that was where I met the aforementioned Duke's daughter. It is a sincere pleasure to meet you. I am the eldest daughter of Duke Annabald Carnatia Seri Annabald. She was a very pretty girl with fiery red hair and an impressively strong-willed expression. Her expression alone was enough to grab my attention, but on top of that, my magic perception skill told me she had enormous magical power. It was right about equal to mine and Sue's. Duke Annabald, by the way, was one of the most powerful nobles in the country. His family had held important positions in the country for generations, and they came from a pedigree with connections to the bloodlines of heroes and the royal family. People born into the Duke's family would all undergo a tough, thorough education, and they were brought up with the know-how to support the country. Even so, the girl in front of me possessed a highly abnormal amount of magic. It even exceeded that of the red-haired man at her side, who I assumed was her father. How do you do? I am Slain Zagan Anale Yoroshiku. I'm guessing that's a Japanese word. With a certain conviction, I pointedly spoke the last word meaning nice to meet you in Japanese. The Duke's daughter's eyes widened for a moment. Oh, ho, ho, ho! Then quickly narrowed. Judging by that reaction, I was positive that my guess had been correct. Father, may I speak with this young lady for a moment? The king's response sounded a little taken aback. This was only natural, I suppose, since there was still a long queue of nobles with their children standing behind the Duke and his daughter, who were the first in line. I couldn't afford to back down here. Must I not? The king looked at me, then the Duke, and then the line behind him before speaking. Very well, but do not be long. You are to come back after a short while. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I grabbed the Duke's daughter's hand like a child and ran off. Behind me, I could tell that Sue was seething with fury, but I couldn't worry about that at the moment. What, did you left her behind? I left the hall and entered a private room that served as a waiting area. Nobles frequently left parties to discuss business and other private work-related matters, so there were always rooms like this near the assembly halls. This place was supposed to be soundproof, and a guard was positioned outside the door, so we were safe. Whew, we should be okay here. I was openly speaking in Japanese now. I can't believe it, so the prince is a reincarnation too. The Duke's daughter replied in the same language. Oh man, it's been so long since I've heard someone else speak in Japanese. I'm getting a little emotional even. She seemed as strong-willed as ever, but now her tone was rather light. So, if you don't mind me asking, does the name Heishin High School ring any bells? I tossed out the name of the high school I attended back on Earth. Yeah, of course. So you really were reincarnated into this world from the same high school as me. Just as I suspected, this girl was a former classmate of mine, dragged into this world by that mysterious crack in her classroom just like I was. My original name was Shunsuke Yamada. What about yours? When I offered my name, the girl gave an uncontrollable snort of laughter. You're Shun, a prince. That's not you at all, dude. She was roaring with laughter now. I got a strange sense of deja vu. I didn't recognize the girl in front of me, but her speech and behavior made her a dead ringer for someone I knew very well. You're not Kanata? Yep. Now it was my turn to burst out laughing. My former game pal, my bro, Kanata, was now an aristocratic young lady. born as a boy in his world, now a girl in this world. Wow, I bet that was annoying to get used to. It was like he'd been reborn as the exact opposite of his previous self. Hey, don't laugh. Do you know how depressed I was when I first got reborn like this? Sorry, you laughed too, though, didn't you? Now we're even. I guess. Damn, though, I'm glad we met like this. I've been pretty lonely all this time. Yeah, you and me both. I'm glad I found you. Kanata and I punched each other in the arm. At that moment, tears started to spill from Kanata's eyes. Whoa, what? Geez, sorry, I swore I wasn't gonna cry. Kanata's sobs grew stronger. Before I knew it, I was crying too. I mean, yeah, considering him, I don't even know how old these guys are. I'm assuming probably 10? Maybe? But still, 10, if it is the case, 10 years at being in this world, thinking that you were the only one brought here. And not being able to see anyone from your past ever again. That must have been awful. I remember what it was like when I first realized I had reincarnated. I definitely couldn't say that I didn't miss my old life. If anything, I was full of regrets. I was still at the height of my youth, and I wanted to spend more time hanging out with my friends. I never even got a girlfriend. Besides, I felt terrible for not only dying before my parents, but even my grandparents. When I realized I would never see my family again, my heart sank lower than you could imagine. I was curious about the state of the school after I died too. I remember the rift in the air and the moment it split open. If I died from that, what happened to everyone else? Kyoya, Kanata, Hasebe, who sat next to me. Did they all die along with me? The thought terrified me. That morning had been perfectly ordinary, but now I could never see any of them again. I've been fighting against that crushing fear ever since I first reincarnated. With no idea what was going on, I suddenly woke up as a baby, so it was only natural that I felt anxious. On top of that, the country of my rebirth wasn't Japan. In fact, it wasn't anywhere on Earth. This was a different world entirely. At first, I didn't realize. I couldn't understand the language, and I rarely got to leave the nursery, so there were a lot of things I didn't know. At first, I thought it was somewhere on Europe. But the first time I saw magic, I realized that wasn't the case. This happened when a powerful priest performed a blessing on me. I was enveloped in glittering light, and I felt power flowing into me. That was when I sensed the existence of magic for the first time. Initially, this was exciting to me. But then I became anxious again. Could I actually make my way in a world with magic? I had just been an ordinary guy in my previous life. Back in Japan, I didn't really experience any hardships, but in this world where I was born into an elite family, mediocrity was not an option. Could I live up to that expectation? I was worried. And since I was a baby, I couldn't get my body to move the way I wanted to, which was scary. Being unable to live without the help of others added to my stress. What if the people raising me suddenly decided to stop? I wouldn't be able to do anything but weaken and die. On top of that, the people bringing me up were maids, not my real family. Since they had no blood relation to me, there were no guarantee that they continued to care for me. Plus, since I still remember my previous life, my real parents in this world seemed like strangers. So wasn't it possible that these parents had just as little attachment to me and could potentially discard me at any moment? My mind was so worn down that I started having these wild delusions. Meanwhile, I desperately started trying to learn the language. Not knowing any words was more frightening than I would have ever imagined. I didn't understand what anyone was saying. Who knew that could give me such hopelessness? It made me feel completely alone. I worried about being reborn in another world, fretted about not understanding the language, agonized over whether I'd be able to make it in the future. What soothed my troubled mind was the presence of my little sister sleeping peacefully beside me. This half-sister of mine wasn't concerned about a single thing. She was totally carefree, as if there was nothing in the world to be anxious about. Oh, I guess that's natural for a baby. A weak little creature that leaves its fate in others' hands. It depends on the world for everything. That's what a baby is supposed to be like. The only reason I was so concerned was that I possessed memories of my previous life. Then I realized something. Since I had my memories, I should be at least be mentally above my sister. So why was I so full of anxiety when she was right beside me being happy? I was her older brother. I shouldn't act so pathetic in front of her. I realized an older brother is supposed to be cool. Maybe that was just pretension. But after that point, I stopped worrying so much. I hadn't completely gotten over my fears, but I knew I wanted to at least protect my defenseless little sister. I gradually learned more words, and slowly but surely I began picking up more information about this world from the bits of conversation I caught. Wanting to regain the range of motion I was used to as quickly as possible, I whipped my baby body into shape by moving around as much as I could. Thanks to that, I learned to crawl much sooner than normal. In this way, my desire to show up my younger sister motivated me. I wanted to be a big brother she could be proud of. However, I hadn't accounted for the possibility that she would turn out to be a ridiculous prodigy who would imitate me and become nearly as strong. Kanata must have experienced at least as much anxiety as I did. I mean, it must be jarring to live your whole life as a man and then suddenly be reborn as a woman. I tried to picture enduring the stress of newly found woman. Oh, God! That must have been awful! That must have been harder than I could possibly imagine. And then I was reunited with my friend whom I thought I'd never see again. I couldn't help becoming overwhelmed with emotion. Without thinking, I moved to embrace the weeping Kanata. At that moment, a thunderous roar came from the doors to the private room. Oh, you got interrupted. And possibly at the wrong moment, too. What was that? Kanata looked flustered. I panicked for a moment, too, but calmed down once I realized who was standing at the door. No, actually, I just panicked in a different way. A second roar blew the door inward. Standing outside the entrance with a magically fueled fist at the ready was Sue, who enhanced her physical strength with magic. Huh? Sue eyed the two of us, then locked on to Kanata. Sue, stop! If I hadn't hurriedly thrust myself between them, Sue's fist would have blown Kanata away. You can't have my brother, Sue muttered, latching onto me instantly. Oh, God! Sue, leave your brother alone. You can't just latch onto him. You're not going to be this is not going to be an incest thing, no. Your sister's scary, dude, Kanata muttered in Japanese. That was the day I was reunited with my first classmate. Yeah, I'm gonna end this off here, guys. I will see you all in the next video. I'm gonna have to edit this.